Welcome to Redefine How You Age, helping women 50 and over build strength, vitality, confidence, and longevity. Hi, I'm Donna Hetrick, clinical nutritionist, personal trainer, and blood chemistry analyst. Thank you for joining me today, and welcome back to those of you who have been following. We are going to continue today with our protein series. We kicked off talking about how to determine your personal protein needs. Then we revved it up and talked about the queen of amino acids, leucine, and how critical it is to get enough of that to trigger muscle protein synthesis. As part of that, we also talked about how amazing of a trick it is to turbocharge those muscles by using a protein powder after those resistance training workouts. So that triggered a lot of questions from many of you in terms of what protein powder should I be using? How do I determine what a good one is? So today we're going to look at the factors that you should look at if you are selecting a protein powder, or maybe you need to reevaluate the one that you already have in your cupboard. We also want to look at what tools are being used to help you choose the best products. And the reason this is important is that because protein powders and protein bars are notorious for unnecessary ingredients. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about artificial sweeteners. I'm talking about artificial colors and hydrogenated oils. Those are oils that have trans fats. That's the same kind of fat that comes in food that comes through your car door window. You don't want it in your daily protein shake or bar. An area that's a little more of a gray area are the gums and thickeners. They are portrayed as being very low-key and not having an impact on your health. However, I have noticed over the years that many of my clients have a problem digesting some of these gums and thickeners. So if you have a product that contains 3 or 4 of these, you may have a problem with bloating, with feeling overly full after you drink your shake or eat your protein bar. So look for that, because carrageenan, guar gum, xanthan gum, cellulose gum, they're all used as thickening agents. You may not have an issue, but I've had people think that the protein powder was the issue, and it actually was the gums and the thickeners. You also want to look out for cheap fillers. They add a lot of calories and they don't add any nutritive value. And then there are the protein powders that have a proprietary blend, 28 grams, and they don't tell you what it is. So how do you know what the leucine content is? How do you know if you tolerate the protein powder that's in it? So you want specific information to give you better guidance in selecting a powder. None of these ingredients are contributing to your overall health, and they are definitely not contributing toward creating lean muscle. So we want to look at another concern too, along with these unnecessary ingredients, and that's heavy metals. This is something that started to be testing in the 2015, 2016 area, and a lot of independent studies are showing that many protein powders on the market have heavy or high levels of mercury, cadmium, lead, and arsenic. So how do you know? How do you determine? You do your homework. All right, you read your labels, you select companies that perform third-party testing, specifically heavy metal testing, companies like NSF International and NSF for Athletes, Consumer Lab, Clean Label Project, which is an organization that I love and have been following since they got off the ground in 2017. You want a company that's transparent about their quality control process. You want a certificate of analysis if you ask for it. And you want a company that has a strong reputation for quality and consistency. So what is third-party testing? Third-party testing is when a company actually takes a product and that they're not involved at all in the production or the sale of the product. And they're comparing what is inside the product with what's on the label. And they're wanting to make sure that it's safe for your consumption. Most times, if a company has gone through a third-party certification, they are going to put a stamp on their label. There will be a hologram. There will be a barcode that you can put your phone up to, and it'll take you to their website. If there's nothing on the label, there's nothing on the website, then there's a pretty good chance that it may not be third-party tested. So one of the things that we are looking for is Where are all these heavy metals coming from? I'm sure that's a big question that you have. They're coming from the soil. They're coming from where the plants are grown to make these protein powders. So it's not anything that is being put in. It comes from just, being in an area where the water and the soil is full of these heavy metals already, and they absorb it through the growing process. Unfortunately, federal regulations don't generally require supplement companies to prove that their products are safe, and there are no federal limits for the amount of heavy metals they can contain. So American consumers then are ending up buying protein powders that have high levels of heavy metals. And how we're finding this out is through companies like Clean Label Project and Consumer Reports, even before that, have let us know through their testing processes that there are some concerns. And some of the major takeaways that we have that we want to go over today is to give you a heads up, and so that you are an educated consumer, is that certified organic products are found to have 3 times more lead than those that are not organic. And that has to do with the fact that the plant-based materials that are in those products contain raw material that is accumulating heavy metals from the soils. Plant-based protein powders tend to have 5 times more cadmium. Chocolate protein powders, sorry guys, tend to have 110 times more cadmium. Now, on that note, I am seeing that a lot of the companies that are now finding out that chocolate protein powders are prone to have higher levels of cadmium, they are testing and they're finding chocolate products to put in their powders that reduces the amount of cadmium. So it appears that companies are responding to the concerns. So pea rice and other plant proteins are naturally accumulate heavy metals from the soil. So those are ones that go in those plant-based proteins. That's why they're a bit higher. Bottom line here is that if you tolerate whey-based, you're going to find a much easier to find a protein product that does not have high levels of heavy metals, and collagen powders also have much lower contaminant levels. And I want to mention that the Clean Label Project also did some testing early on that had to do with testing the BPAs. And the good news is that they are coming up now that they're almost non-existent in the products. So that's really a great response to the controversy of these forever chemicals, and we're glad to see they're not there. All right, collagen peptides versus protein peptides. I wanted to talk about this with you because I realized as I was putting this material together for today that I had not made that discernment in my previous podcasts. And here's what I have happen. I will have a client come in for a nutrition session, and I will ask them if they're using a protein powder. They will indicate that they are, and when they tell me what they're using, it is not a protein powder, it is a collagen peptide. Now, collagen peptides are very important to us in our menopausal bodies. We need them, but I'm bringing up the distinction because a collagen peptide powder does not assist in encouraging muscle development and muscle growth like protein powders do. Collagen peptides support our general muscle health, our muscular skeletal system. So we're talking about your skin and its hydration, the elasticity of your skin, your joints, your tendons, your hair, and your nails. We need all of this. Very valuable to that muscular skeletal structure, but very low in leucine. So guess what? That means that it's not stimulating muscle protein synthesis. So if you are only using collagen peptides and not using a protein powder and not getting enough of those top tier food proteins that we discussed in previous episodes, you are not going to be able to have that muscle stimulation that you're looking for to change your body composition at this time of your life. So you want to combine collagen peptides with protein powders with top tier protein choices. Okay. So if you need a plant-based or prefer a plant-based protein, you don't have to be concerned. Don't panic. There are products out there that have gone through testing for you. And I want to take a look at some of the companies who are doing what the testing and the kinds of things that I'm recommending that you be on the lookout for. So here we are. We have a momentous whey protein isolate at the very top. It's vanilla. It's vanilla because chocolate tends to have more cadmium, but I was able to find a lot of chocolate options for you also. My absolute favorite on this list, hands down, is the Isopure Unflavored Whey Protein Isolate. You can put it in anything. You can put it in your coffee. You can put it in a salad dressing. You can put it in a protein shake. It just goes wherever, mixes in quite nicely, wherever you want to use it. So take a look at this list. These are a really nice, solid list of options for you. The only plant-based protein on here is Truvani, plant-based chocolate. They were reported to have low heavy metals by the Consumer Reports, who tested in 2015, 2016, and then did it again last year. And they came out doing a very good job for a plant-based protein. So any of these will work well for you if you're trying to find a quality, clean protein, one that is not going to be putting consistent amounts of heavy metals into your system, because we hold on to those. We don't get rid of them, and they can cause issues down the road for us, health issues, if we ingest too much of them too often. All right, egg white protein powder is another one I want to bring up. 35 years ago when I first started out in this business, I'm celiac, so dairy for me was a no-go, and so I lived on egg white protein powder because that was before collagen peptides, before bone broth powders, before plant-based powders. They didn't come on the market till about 2000. So egg white protein powder is an excellent choice on a non-dairy issue, and it is tolerated very well by a lot of individuals. This is my pick. This is my top pick. This is what I personally use. It's called, the company name is Naked Nutrition. The name of the protein is Naked Egg. It's got 2 ingredients. That is it. And for 2 scoops, I get 25 grams of protein, 2.3 grams of leucine. So it's a little low, isn't it? So I add a little bit more of that protein powder, or I might throw in a little bit of a flavored whey protein isolate to round it out. But this is a really great company. They do independent heavy metal testing, don't have anything but those 2 ingredients. They use non-GMO eggs, and they get those eggs to the manufacturing plant within a day to preserve the amino acid profile. On their website, I was kind of laughing that they only gave a 4 out of 5, but the reason is it doesn't mix well unless you put it in a blender. You cannot mix an egg white protein doing this. You have to put it in a blender. So I think that was the only complaint about it. All right, next we're going to take a look at protein bars. All right, and I'm going to take the same approach to these as I did to selecting a quality protein powder. We're looking at muscle building potential. We're looking at leucine potential, the quality of the ingredients, how convenient it is, and I gave it my rating. So these 4 bars are some of the best ones I found based on those particular factors. There is so much out there. If you go into like a Wegmans grocery store, there is a whole aisle with nothing but bars. And if you start reading the labels, recently a client shared with me a label for a bar that had canola protein isolate. That is a byproduct of the canola oil making industry. Why would I want to ingest something like that? It's just, so you really have to read the labels and be very prudent about that. I want to say a quick word about how I recommend my clients utilize protein bars. I do not consider them a top tier or a top protein choice. I consider them to be a convenience food and to be utilized only when there's absolutely no other way that you can get a protein shake or a top tier food protein choice. That said, I want to go into each one of these. We're going to take a look at Julian Bakery egg white almond bar. So here's the deal with these bars. I just showed you an egg white protein where for 110 calories, I got 25 grams of protein and maybe half a scoop of something else, so maybe 150 calories. I got everything I needed in that shake to do the job that I'm looking for it to do. In a bar, like this bar, it's great in terms of ingredients. It's got a short ingredient list. You get 20 grams of egg white protein. I think it probably has more widespread tolerability in terms of digestibility by most people because it's egg whites. It has a higher leucine potential. However, if you have to eat 1.5 bars to get the same result that I got from my egg white protein shake or my whey protein isolate shake, with zippo grams of carbs, zippo grams of fat, zippo grams of sugar. So here we have a bar. You have to eat 1.5 of them after your resistance training workout to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. 315 calories, not too bad. 13.5 grams of fat, which may not be tolerated by some. 31.5 grams of carbs. That's a lot of carbs at one time for most people. 1.5 grams of sugar, 25.5 grams of fiber. We recommend 25 grams of fiber throughout the day. Again, from a tolerability standpoint, I'm not sure that most people would feel great after eating that much at one time. You get 30 grams of protein and get your 2.5 grams of leucine. Okay, that's 1.5 bars. Next, we're going to look at the Lineage bar, Lineage protein bar for humans, chocolate chip cookie dough. All right, this one is whey protein and grass-fed bovine collagen. Great for some people, not great for others. So if you're not eating red meat or you don't tolerate red meat, you're not going to do well with the bovine collagen either. So, or if you're not dairy intolerant, the whey protein is not going to work for you. The downside of this one is that it is 277.5 calories, so a little bit less on the calorie load. 9 grams of fat, more tolerable than the first one. 18 grams of carbs, much better. 1.5 grams of fiber. 15 grams of sugar, a little high. And you get your 13 grams of protein and your 2.5 grams of leucine. So personally, for my body, I do well with a whey protein. I do well with a bovine collagen. If I had to eat a protein bar after a workout instead of a shake, I would probably opt for this one. Okay. The next one is called Just Ingredients Protein Snack Bar. I really appreciate the fact that they put snack bar in the title because that's what this is, all right? It is a snack. It is not a meal. To make it a meal, if you look over in that third column, you need 3 bars. So you need, and that's going to give you 690 calories, 42 grams of fat, 72 grams of carbs, and 42 grams of sugar. You know, for that, I'm going to eat a donut. I'm kidding, but not. I mean, it's just, and this is where what happens with these bars. We think that we are making a good choice, and then we get frustrated when we are not able to change the body composition. We are not able to reduce the body fat. At the age that we're at, boy, it would take an amazing athlete running marathons weekly and riding bikes for 100 miles a day to burn off this kind of calorie load. It's just way too much for us. The last bar we're going to look at is called Perfect Bar. This one got a little bit of a lesser rating maybe because it has to be refrigerated. So it's not, you know, one that's going to travel well if it can't be refrigerated for long periods of time. It does have organic ingredients. It is a complete protein. There are no artificial sweeteners and there's minimal processing. But one bar gives you just 17 grams of protein and 19 grams of fat because there's nut butters in it, 27 grams of carbs, 19 grams of sugar, and 3 grams of fiber. So, you know, sorry guys, but I'm going to go back to my Isopure unflavored whey protein shake for 100 calories, 0 grams of carbs, 0 grams of sugar, 0 grams of fat, and 25 grams of protein, and 2.5 grams of leucine. So you see what I'm doing here, the comparisons I'm making. I think the bars are, if you need to use them, I gave you some options there, but for the most part, I would stick with the shakes and the food choices, the food sources. All right, so in my last promo, I mentioned that I would be talking about essential amino acid blends and about creatine. You know, I started getting into this and there is a tremendous amount of information and research and I didn't want to just glaze over it. So I'm going to do a whole episode on that in a future time, but we're not covering it now, but stay tuned. I will come back to that. I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned it. So I just want to, at this point, highly encourage you to get the most of your protein from food sources. And I want you to Look for a quality, clean protein using those guidelines that I gave you, making sure that you are kicking anything out with unnecessary ingredients, and you're asking yourself the question, is this bar or is this protein shake stimulating muscle protein synthesis? Because if it's not, why are you drinking it? All right, next time you're going to meet someone who's really special to me. She's been a client of mine for 30 years. You heard that right. Her story is one that I think every woman over 50 needs to hear. She's going to share with you some of the changes that she has been making to become stronger for the life that she wants to lead. Things were starting to change and shift, and she didn't like it. So we have really gone into overdrive in making sure that she has changed the direction and the trajectory of her health span and her longevity. You will love her. She is putting everything we've been talking about into action, and in a reasonable and doable way. So until we meet again, I want to encourage you to read those labels, get rid of unnecessary ingredients, and age strong and live long. Thanks for listening to the Redefine How You Age podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend or two. If you would like more information about me, Donna Hetrick, visit my website at donnaphetrick.com.